The Vice President, Rebecca Nyandeng Demabure, accompanied by government delegations, are in the United States and attended the 76th United Nations General Assembly. Vice President Rebecca Nyandeng Demabure gave an address at the gathering. Join us as we discuss this and more only on Beyond the Headlines. Our guest on the program is the Ambassador of the Republic of South Sudan to the United States, Ambassador Phillip Jada Natana. Ambassador Natana was the former ambassador of the Republic of South Sudan to the Republic of South Africa and ambassador of the Republic of South Sudan to the state of Eritrea. Thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you. It's a pleasure, and it's always a pleasure to be here.
Yes, thank you. The Vice President, Rebecca Nyandeng Demabure, gave an address at the 76th United Nations General Assembly. What were the key focus points of her speech?
Well, thank you very much for that question. Yes, we just got down from New York Saturday after she delivered her speech on Friday to the United Nations General Assembly. And usually when heads of states and governments or the heads of delegations are invited, we expect to be dealing with two things during the General Assembly. One is, of course, related to your own specific country. And then the second is with the issue of the theme of the years. So this year was building resilience, hope to recover from COVID-19 and to rebuild sustainability response to the needs of the planet. So she was able to deal with that because, fortunately for us, maybe these issues are actually interconnected with what we have at home. So first, our first Vice President started off by actually informing the United Nations about the situation back at home as related to the implementation of this agreement and the challenges that are facing it. And in particular, in her speech, there is one thing of particular importance which she stressed on, and that is that yes, she admitted that the implementation of the peace process has been very slow, but we are on the right track. And she went on to explain some of the reasons that resulted in the implementation, slow implementation of the peace agreement, which are mentioned, of course, sources, mentioned some of difficult practical aspects, like the arms embargo, which is affecting the delivery of weapons for these soldiers to be graduated and so on. So these are issues that she dealt with as pertaining our implementation of the peace agreement and why it is slow. But she was also able, to address the theme of this year, and so she was able to talk about the effect of COVID-19, not just on the population but also on the economy of the country. So, like everybody else in the globe, we also were hit by this COVID and the measures that the government had created. But also, she took the opportunity to thank the international community for being able to assist South Sudan, especially in relation to vaccines. So through COVAX, South Sudan was able to receive vaccines, by the way, included the Johnson & Johnson, donated by the United States to COVAX. But she also had a chance to outline some of the that we are facing, which are direct results of climate change. This is one of the central issues, the theme of the discussion for this year. South Sudan, as you know, has been affected by flooding, direct result of climate change.
Here is part of what the Vice President had to say during her UN address.
Building state capacities to govern responsibly and effectively is essential. It is also necessary to guard against the unintended consequences of dependency on humanitarian assistance. With the constant improvement in peace security, it is time to transition from emergency and place our efforts to resetting the sustainable development agenda. The development of the revitalized national development strategy is the government of South Sudan's clear and deliberate roadmap to accelerating the implementation of our axis while laying the foundations of sustainable peace and the stabilization of our economy. It is a painful and shameful situation for a country endowed with vast, fertile land to be regarded as poor. We must ensure peace and security in the country and double our efforts to support our people who wanted to return and are returning to their areas of origin, for them to participate fully in nation building and contribute to bringing food security in the country.
A note of her speech during her United Nations address was the government's commitment to bringing lasting peace and development to the people of South Sudan. However, this has been noted as the same unfulfilled promises reiterated year after year by the leadership, according to many of our citizens. In her speech, the Vice President urged the international community to expand trade and invest in the country to mitigate the economic crisis it faces as means of decreasing youth unemployment and lessening their involvement in war. Did the Vice President address in the sideline meetings that she's held so far with the international community any accountability measures the government is taking in the instability in the country right now?
Yes, this is a very, very good question. And of course, there's been, first of all, the Vice President admitted that there's a lot of frustration, not just from the international community, as you rightly mentioned it, from South Sudanese. And I have to note here the word process, because peace is not an end in itself, but it's a process. And when you are implementing or going through the process, there are practical challenges, as I've mentioned before, that are on the way and these need to be addressed. So we need patience, but we also need commitment. And I think that is one of these are the two things that the Vice President spoke about. The question that has always been asked is that we have had the same thing as you post the question time and again, but what is so different this year that you are going to do to make us believe that you are really serious? And she was able to answer that by saying that, first of all, we are committed, and everybody, we as a, the presidency, that is the president plus the 5 vice presidents are in agreement that nobody from their own party is going to take back the country. So what we need to do is that we have to engage with our partners to see that the implementation of the peace process is on track, and we can discuss with them the ways that we have helped with them. Remember when the CPA was signed, that is the Comprehensive Peace Agreement, the United Nations plus other partners came and they tried to help. And I think one of the things that they have done was to set up UNIMIS, which was established and mandated to help people, to help the parties and help the government to implement the peace process. And one of the things that was supposed to be the implementation of the peace process is capacity building. But as the peace agreement was being implemented, unfortunately, that aspect was neglected, and there was a lot of focus on humanitarian assistance. So yes, we admit that the humanitarian situation has been dire, and there was really need to respond to that humanitarian crisis. But in the absence of capacity building, then you are not well equipped deal with, the process of not only cementing the peace agreement, but even these other issues of development. So these are some of the things that she was here and she was actually able to develop. But it will depend on the level of the results of the discussions so far. Yeah, I think they have been very, very positive. The way that she was welcomed, but also in the way that people were able to listen to her and engage with her and express their genuine fears, but also happy to get the assurances that she was able to bring forward. Remember, she's not only looked upon here as the vice president, but she has in her history being the mother of the revolution, and I think people know what she has been through the long struggle.
While in Washington, D.C., the delegation led by Vice President Rebecca Nyandeng Demabiro held a meeting with the U.S. Special Envoy for the Horn of Africa, Ambassador Jeffrey Feldman. What was the purpose of the meeting and what were its outcomes? Also, were there other high-level meetings that have been held so far in Washington, D.C. by the Vice President and the government delegation?
So the things that we discussed, or she discussed with Ambassador Feldman, how South Sudan can contribute in offering to solve the problems that are, or the challenges that are in Ethiopia now. So we offer that because based on our experience in mediation, we have, as you know, we have mediated an end to 2 conflicts in the region. That is, one was the LRA that was created then by even the government of Southern Sudan before we became an independent country. That was a very successful endeavor done by South Sudan. The second has been the recent signing of the Juba Agreement, which brought the government of Sudan to an agreement with all these other factions that were fighting. So this is one, our experience of trying to mediate. The other thing that we think that we can also be able to, which can be useful, is also our historical relations with Ethiopia. Government in Ethiopia now also related because of historical reasons. And I think they will be willing to listen to us. And I don't know whether you are probably aware, our president has already gone ahead straight further and met President or Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed and offered that he can, if acceptable, he will be able to try to mediate between. So this is one of the things that was discussed, or some of the things that were discussed. Yes, also we also had a meeting Under Secretary for Africa, Ambassador Beck, who is a person who is well known, vice president in the time of the struggle, because at some point he was the ambassador to Ethiopia, to Nairobi, so Kenya. And so he was able to meet with him, and we had very cordial meeting where Ambassador Kodek shared the concerns of the U.S. government, but she was also able to explain to him the reasons I've already talked about earlier. So these were 2 high-level meetings that were conducted, and I must admit that although these have been meetings that have been very tough, but I think the discussions was.
During our previous interview, you mentioned the Vice President planned on holding a meeting with the World Bank and the IMF. Have the meetings taken place, and if so, what were the outcomes?
Yes, the meetings took place, and these were among the first meetings that actually, conducted both the IMF and the World Bank. The meetings were very successful. First, took the opportunity first to thank the IMF for the loans that they were able to give South Sudan, and even to explain how effective those loans have been in stabilizing the economy of the country. Now, for example, that could be seen, or is already felt by the ordinary person, that the usual problem of the dollar becoming stronger and our currency being weak and the exchange rate always going up. And she jokingly mentioned that, even people were complaining and said that, every time when we go to sleep, when we wake up, then we see that the dollar has, the price of the dollar against the South Sudanese pound has gone up. And these people who deal with this money, don't they want us to sleep? Because every time we go to sleep, we wake up and we see that the prices have gone up. But now we no longer have different exchange rates in Juba. The rates have been stabilized. The same rate that you get at the alternative market is the same rate that you can get on the forex deal. So the demand for dollars has really gone down. Now there are other also projects that were discussed and with the Ministry of Agriculture and the Ministry of Agriculture together with the program of women, how the World Bank can be able to support South Sudan to invest through the youth and women in agricultural activity. And I think that has also been a very successful meeting. The outcomes have been very fruitful, so there will be a project that will be announced very soon with the World Bank to see that some funds are injected to enable the private sector and especially agriculture.
The Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Deng Dao Deng, said that the government has established diplomatic relations with the Republic of Latvia and the Republic of Cyprus. Here's what he had to say.
As a Foreign Ministry, on behalf of Minister Mayik, I also signed diplomatic relations with the Republic of Latvia and also with the Republic of Cyprus. These are diplomatic relations to widen our scopes of political engagement in the world, the Republic of South Sudan. We are not going to establish a presence in those particular countries, but in multilateral relations. They are very important because South Sudan is working hard to get out of the current sanction of arm embargo and sanction against individuals.
The Vice President held a meeting with the Venezuela Foreign Minister, Phillip Plasencia. This is what he had to say following the meeting.
We're here to support in all fields. Venezuela is an oil-producing country. We've been doing this business for 100 years, so we're ready to pass our expertise and train your people on the knowledge we acquired in this 100 years of producing oil. Venezuela is a founding member of OPEC, and we're ready to pass the know-how, the knowledge of this expertise, but also in many other fields, how we control the water resources through our Minister for Water, the environment, which is very important in your country, in my country. We're ready to support you to pass the knowledge to your people, to train your people. We invited, through the Lady Vice President, your people from South Sudan to come to Venezuela and train on all these fields. So the meeting was very successful. We talk about multilateralism, our position towards Africa and South America united together. ASA is a forum that we had in the past. South America and Africa together. So we talk about all that, multilateralism, bilateral, the exchange of ambassadors from capital to capital. That would be something fantastic.
Among the delegates that accompanied the Vice President is Phillip Mayardit, the President's son, who was recently appointed as the Executive Director in the Office of the President. What is his function as part of the delegation to the United States?
Yes, I think Mayardit is among the delegation, but it's not only him. From the Office of the President, we also have Ateng Wekaten, who's the top person in the Office of the President. And we also have Albino Madito, a senior policy analyst. So initially when the delegation was set up, it was an understanding that the president was going to be the one leading delegation to the UN General Assembly. And so from the president's office, there were officials were selected. I just mentioned these, but in addition to this, of Minister in the Presidential Affairs, Dr. Barnaba Benjamin Marial, who also is on the delegation. CEO. We also have several others, 2 other senior people, Ambassador Agin, and another person who's actually part of the protocol of the president. So these were the people who were already part of the delegation. So now, when at the last moment the president was not able to travel due to urgent issues that came about unforeseen, back at home, found that they were already part of the delegation. So they came as part of the delegation, and their presence was actually been very, very useful, because in some of the bilateral discussions that we had, there were really issues that have to be dealt with across different departments that are based in the office of the president.
In addition, the Minister of Agriculture and Food Security, as you mentioned, Joseph Lagu, is here as part of the delegation. The Minister of Environment and Forestry, Josephine Napuan Cosmos, and the Minister of Health, Elizabeth Achue Yol, are among the government delegations to the US. Can you please tell us what has been their role and what meetings they have held so far with the international community?
Yes, thank you very much for that. There were actually several ministers who were part of the delegation, and I think it's for the first time, and I think mentioned about it, that among in the composition of the delegation that was led by Her Excellency, the Vice President, Madame Rebecca Nyandeng, there was a sizable group of women who were there, but they are not just there as women, but holding very important portfolios that became central theme of this year's discussion in the General Assembly. In addition to the ministers that you have also already mentioned, there's also another lady minister, Minister Yawarile, who's the gender, who was being part of this delegation. So all of these ministers were included in the delegation because there were issues that were actually directly related to them. You specifically mentioned here about the Minister of Culture, Josephine Lagu. She has been part of this delegation because this meeting that I've already mentioned to you, the World Bank, and she held a meeting already with the World Bank, one of the very successful meetings. But she was also able on the sideline to engage in bilateral meetings. When we were in New York, we had bilateral meetings with other world leaders. I mean, the president of Guinea-Bissau, the president of Tanzania, the president of Bird, and other presidents. As the Minister of Environment was here to discuss very important issues like the issues of climate change. And as I said, she was accompanied by technical people, our ministry, two, the undersecretary, one other technocrat. So they were able actually contribute positively, but also able to get funding for some of the projects to deal with the environment. Minister of Health, the issues of COVID-19 were also discussed, and I think part of the discussions of the General Assembly were that she was also able to get in bilateral engagement. So we have so far conducted a meeting with Johns Hopkins University, but also with ICO and other NGOs that are interested in supporting the health sector in South Sudan. So currently she's here. There will be more follow-up meetings with the PICO and Johns Hopkins University, but also Georgetown University. They are going to discuss issues of capacity building, especially for medical staff and so on.
A statement was released from your embassy, the South Sudan Embassy in Washington, D.C., that the Vice President, Rebecca Nyandeng Demabure, plans on holding meetings with the South Sudanese communities in Washington, D.C., but also in the states of Nebraska and Arizona. What issues does the Vice President plan on briefing the community about?
From the word go, when I came to be the ambassador in the United States, one of my programs, major programs that I want to achieve in this country is to have an engagement with the diaspora so that they can possibly contribute development of the country. Because in the diaspora, you have people who have got skills, and you also have people who are already contributing in a bigger way. Remittance from the diaspora back to South Sudan is among one of the biggest remittances in the continent that has been taking place. And although most of these, of course, go in the form of directly families of those who are in the diaspora, but there will be an opportunity for people to contribute in a bigger way to the development of the country. So at the level of the embassy, again, we thought this is an opportunity, for the Vice President to come and meet with people of the diaspora. We identified the three areas. We identified Nebraska and Arizona because we believe that this is where we have a bigger concentration of South Sudanese Americans. And so her presence to come and be here in the country is also an opportunity for her to brief our community, because there are questions to ask regarding the implementation of the peace agreement. There are people who are interested in investing back home, people who wanted to go back home. And I think these are some of the concerns that she will be able to address through her engagement of the community. So that's why we thought it will be a very good idea. And it was already in her program, by the way, that she feels that she cannot go back from the United States without engaging. So in collaboration with her office, we were able to set up this engagement. So she will be meeting with the South Sudanese community in Nebraska on the 2nd, and probably on the 8th or the 9th, she will also meet with Arizona, and then on the 10th, she will meet the community here in Washington, D.C.
Apart from the government delegation paying a courtesy visit to the South Sudan embassy in Washington, D.C., it's been noted that South Sudanese embassies, not only in the U.S., but in Europe, in Asia, and in Africa, are experiencing financial constraints, late payments of salaries, and lack of other forms of support to implement the foreign policy in their respective locations. Did the high-ranking government delegation address this issue in terms of trying to mitigate it? And in addition, has the South Sudan embassy in the US, and you in particular, in the capacity of the ambassador, established official communication with the newly appointed Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mayika Yikdeng?
Yes, South Sudan embassy here, as you mentioned, like all our other embassies, but also like all the sectors that we have operating in the government, different ministries, the security institutions like the army, and the peace agreement itself, we have been affected by lack of resources, funding, because of the conflict, which resulted in the economy really taking hard hit. And that has resulted in, as you mentioned, payment of salaries. Now, the situation is very well known to the leadership of the country, including the president, plus the vice president, also the minister of finance, and the minister of foreign affairs. So we have, on several occasions, been discussing these very candidly in how we can be able to address this situation. Because it is actually affecting activities, diplomacy, all the other activities, able to run them and crash struck. So this has been addressed, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs is also very well aware about it. He has mentioned in his during his swearing-in ceremony that one of his priorities as the Minister of Foreign Affairs is to see that these arrears in salaries are paid, but also to see that salaries are paid on time. So we believe strongly that there is actually an interest in trying to stabilize or trying to fulfill that promise, but it is just time that will require. And yes, I've been in touch with the new Minister of Foreign Affairs, Honorable Deng Ayi, and he was able to discuss some of his plans, including how we can work improving our foreign policy, especially in regards, specifically in regards to the United States, and also to address some of the challenges that. So yes, the question, issue of non-payment of salaries have been addressed, and yes, touch our new Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Relations.
Mm-hmm. In June of last year, it was reported that the Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Mayik Deng, was denied a visa to travel to the US over corruption allegations involving the Juba-Barkazal Highway. Minister Mayik holds dual citizenship as a US and South Sudanese citizen. Now, has the US government communicated to you or the South Sudan Embassy in Washington, D.C. in regards to plans of granting the newly appointed minister a visa?
Well, I think dual citizenship is something that is very common with many of our South Americans, and people who are, American but also South Sudanese, who hold these good choose when they want to travel to the United States on which visa they want to travel on. And I know of South Sudanese who are on official missions. When they travel to the United States, of course, they come in their official capacity, so they need South Sudanese passport. They are dual citizens, and at the same time they hold American visas. But out of government, I also know people who are South Sudanese Americans who always opt to travel when they're coming back to the United States to use their American visa. So the information that Minister Mayik denied entry to the United States, of course, is a false allegation, I think, without any basis, because I think very well, and I see you're also a dual citizen and you hold an American passport. There is no country in the world that would deny based on allegation of crimes that are purported committed in another country, because that will mean like you are denying your citizen a right to come back to this world. So I just want to say that this did not take place. Minister, after being relieved from these allegations, which was supposed to be investigated, did not make an attempt to come to the United States, to my knowledge, and even he didn't travel to any other country. He remained in Juba for reasons that he has already said that he didn't want to travel because he wants to be in Juba so that people don't go around and misinterpret. But for him being denied a visa to come to the United States, that definitely did not.
Yes, thank you very much, Ambassador Phillip Jada Natana, who's the ambassador of the Republic of South Sudan to the United States. Thank you for joining me here on Beyond the Headlines.
Thank you very much, Eunice, for speaking.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube page at Sunrise Media.